Hello, welcome and welcome back. This is Jacob and today we are gonna be adding a tiny little bonus episode to our narration and character voicing of the Siracusano side story in Arknights. And in this bonus little episode we will be adding those little description, the critic section and stuff that I didn't add during the rest of the narration. And speaking of the rest of the narration, if you are bumping into this channel and this narration series in general for the first time through this video, playlists are in the description of the video. In the very top part of it, you will find the entire playlist for this narration, followed also on top of it by the beginning of the story, all the way back in Code of Brawl, followed by To Be Continued, which in part 2 of that narrations playlist contains one singular story, aka Wolf and Wolfpack, that is pretty much bridging the gap between Code of Brawl towards Il Siracusano. So if you want to watch all of those in order, you're free to do so. Or if you just want to watch the Il Siracusano storyline, you are also free to do so. Those are all in the description of the video and much more. But anyway, before we go into what's gonna be in this little bonus fluff episode at the end of the narration, first off, let me thank you all for all the likes and comments so far on pretty much all of the episodes that have come out for this narration and in general. Thank you very much. They help a lot and mean a lot to me, so thank you very much. Alright, so what are we gonna go over in this final little bonus episode? Well, like I was talking across the narrations so far, we're gonna go over the entirety of the critic section, followed by all the extra little fluff that I've skipped over, like the individual node descriptions throughout the city of Volcini, plus a couple of extra things at the very end, and you will see what I mean by that when we get to that. But first, we are gonna begin with the critics section, and before we do so, let me pull something quickly up, because I'll need it in a second. But let's go in. So, first off, I want to point out that I almost got the best pairings, blindly guessing the likes. Sadly, I didn't get Texas and Lapland to pair up, but you know, some of them are perfect. Like this one is the best, I guess. Anyway, our first opera is obviously one that we have heard a lot throughout the main story, which is La Morte di Texas. And if I'm correct here, this little thing here is supposed to be like probably the average critics, sorry, not critics, the average tabloid scores, I guess, or the tabloid that is scoring these operas. Because later, as we go through them, there will be discrepancies between what the individuals are scoring it, and it's pretty much a Metacritic score kind of thing, right? Anyway, let's go in. So, we're gonna read this from left to right, top to bottom, essentially. So, beginning with Leon, titled with The Familia's History. The demise of Familia Texas was a result of Siracusa's old order, yet even the fall of such a prominent Familia did not change anything. The status quo did not change and the Familia continued to fight amongst each other. The new Siracusa cannot continue down this path. 8.7 out of 10, followed by Lapland. Very interesting. Some of the details are realistic, uncannily so. The playwright must have some strong opinions about Texas to come up with an ending like that. 7 out of 10. Followed by Lavinia. Not bad. Act 3 was staged successfully. Thankfully, it looks like the events of the preceding period did not interfere with the playwright's work after all. Very much looking forward to your next piece. 8.5 out of 10. Back to the top with Texas. Liked the ending. My friend starred in the show, so I went to watch her. It was good. Also, goodbye. 8.5 out of 10. Followed by Giovanna. Ended as it should. A satisfying ending, exactly how the story should have ended. It's basically the image I have in my mind. 8 out of 10. Very interesting to critic your own thing, but considering you're using a pen name as a writer, I guess it works. Anyway, followed by Dan Brown. Didn't get it. I was eating popcorn in the theater and they kicked me out. Never got to finish. 5 out of 10. Followed by Demetri. No opinion. If things really did end that way, that might have been better for a lot of people. 7 out of 10. Back to the top with Sora.
Very happy. This show was my Siracusan debut. A lot of unexpected things happened along the way, but the final performance turned out pretty good. It looks like the audience enjoyed it too, which makes me very happy.
9 out of 10. Followed by Agonir. Unexpectedly good. An unexpectedly good ending, avoiding falling into common cliches. The youth have the power to go beyond the status quo and see things from a broader perspective. They are the saplings of our future. 8.5 out of 10. And ending with this one with Ben. I'm sorry, Ben, you're not fooling anybody. Benthonecinios. Anyway, pretty decent ending. It's clear that the playwright shifted her paradigm once, and this shift elevated the quality of the entire opera to another level, bringing it from a personal story with a heroic narrative style to an evocative Siracusan tale. That's enough for now. I'll save rest of my commentary for the arts papers. 9 out of 10. Well, both the critics and the individual characters have scored this one pretty high, as we do know from the story itself. One thing I will point out, obviously here we don't have Exia and Croissant, who are part of the story, sadly. That would be funny to read as well. Especially Exia's nonsense, or actually never mind. Both Croissant and Exia would have been excellent additions to these to this section. One just probably talking nonsense, the other one trying to shill stuff probably. Anyway, one thing I will say, however, I am, as a joke, in here I would have loved if one of them would have been Signore De Lupi. Just growling and calling everything bullshit. I think that is a very missed opportunity. Just for the shits and giggles. Anyway, we are following with our next opera, which is the Guardie Armi. Or from the translation I found, which would be Guards and Weapons, unless there is a better translation of that. Oh, by the way, considering all of these operas are kinda like... they're kind of references to actual, I guess, movies or series. I am not actually sure. I'm not that big on Mafia movies and tales outside of some obvious ones, some big obvious ones, but it's been a while since I saw any movie or series that is Mafia related. So if anybody who is listening to this knows what each of these operas is referencing in general, please do leave it in the comment section if you can. I would love to read that, because I kind of couldn't find anything. So, well, not anything specific, but yeah, if anybody knows, please leave me a comment. I would love to know what each of these references, and maybe check them out. Anyway, as I said, Guardie Armi, and we begin with Leon. Nice plot. Was recommended by a friend, and don't regret it at all. After watching too many shows playing up the greatness of the Familia, a whole lot of people come to see themselves in the great heroic mafiosi depicted in those operas, and that's a dangerous thing. 8.2 out of 10. Followed by Dan Brown. Really good experience. This is my first time using this new rating system. It was also my first time watching an opera in a theater, which was kind of strange. By the end, I was shouting along with the others. I might have to ask the author myself. What did he choose at the end? To pick up the phone, or to throw away those old rapiers? 7 out of 10. Followed by Lavinia. An excellent work. I just happened to stop by after work to kill some time, and I didn't expect the show to be so good. I was blown away when I saw that Judge get knocked out and stuffed into the trunk. The author writes unexpected while still realistic twists, carrying a message through. Will recommend to friends. 8.7 out of 10. From Texas. Dark humor. A pretty good show, great for enjoying with friends. It's fun listening to them try to break down the plot. The introductions at the beginning were hard to keep track of. I was fine personally, but someone was about to doze off. 7.9 out of 10, followed by Lapland.
Didn't care much for it. Pretty interesting, not much else to say.
1 out of 10. Absolute chaos. Her critic stuff is just absolute chaos, and it's pretty much on point. Love it. Followed by Agonir. Unfortunately, I missed the beginning. It's something that happens more and more as you get older. Fortunately, the later half was exciting. The last few stories all unfolded in the same little room, which was an interesting spin. 8.5 out of 10. Followed by Demetri. Interesting. Story was very interesting, but those two crooks reminded me of some former subordinates of mine who could never follow instructions. The boss's line stuck with me. Just don't hire idiots. 8.5 out of 10. Followed by Ben. Not bad. A rarely seen style, in somewhat ironic fashion, explores the true story of a multi-party struggle, reflecting the dark side of the Familia's activities. Begins by introducing the backgrounds of a cast of characters, leading to the titular theme, then finally leaving the audience on a suspenseful note. Flows naturally, good show. 8.9 out of 10. Followed by Sora.
Amazing. Bring your friends. I was almost kicked out for bringing pizza to the door, but we ate it on the spot. The story is really amazing, and I want to get to know the playwright. Acting in a show like this is sure to expand my acting career.
9 out of 10. And finally, Giovanna.
A learning experience. The playwright's creativity is worth learning from. While everyone else uses serious narratives to tell the story of the Familia, this author took the completely opposite approach. Moreover, a number of coincidences occur in this show, but they are presented in a way that always feels natural and not jarring. Very impressive.
8.7 out of 10. And we move on to our third opera, the Cattivi Ragazzi, or Bad Guys, with a critic score of 5.4, which for now still mirrors the the character scores here. But beginning with Sora.
Way too funny. Did the playwright know about the gangsters that ran out of Siracusa? The ringleader was a red-haired Vulpo, and the protagonist bore too many similarities to him. Impulsive and arrogant, yet not dislikable at all. The other two brothers, one calm, one brash, matched him perfectly as well.
5 out of 10. Leon. Too true. It's the lowest wise guy who hates his familia, all while clinging to it, yearning for it, until he finally betrays the brothers who were there for him all the way up the ladder just to save his own skin. It's what it is. 4 out of 10. Followed by Demetri. Didn't finish. Had to leave halfway through because something came up, but it was still pretty touching to see 3 like-minded young men. You don't see such tight-knit fratelli these days. 8 out of 10. His is the highest score out of everybody. Anyway, followed by Agonir. Kids these days, like-minded youths always seem to come together. Really takes me back. 6 out of 10. What about Lapland?
Waste of time. Boring as hell.
1 out of 10. Giovanna.
Lots to improve on. The playwright still needs some refinement. Beginning a story with minor characters is a common maneuver. It reflects the changing times as well as personal development and choices. Unfortunately, the execution didn't pan out in the end.
6 out of 10. followed by Lavinia.
Mediocre. Just the same run-of-the-mill stuff I see every day after work. You know what the playwright is trying to convey through these three characters, but unfortunately they don't have the skills to pull it off.
5.5 out of 10. Texas.
Thought of something else. Next time I'm going to ask the boss if we can shoot a film about a group of friends just like this. We'll move the setting from Lungmen to Siracusa. Don't know about anyone else, but I sure want a star in that myself.
She actually ended the sentence with a star, which is kind of funny. Anyway, 5.5 out of 10. Followed by Ben.
Pretty bad. What the playwright seeks to express is evident, but unfortunately cannot fully do so due to a lack of ability. For example, the brothers' rebellion at the end should have reflected the Familia's principle of self-interest above all else, yet this was written off as a farce. But having that said, were it not for that bit of expressiveness, the entire opera would have been a complete waste of time.
5 out of 10. And finally, Dan Brown. Didn't get it. I didn't really understand what the show was getting at. I wanted to ask someone to explain it to me, but the judge lady who told me to check it out hasn't come by. I'm not sure how she feels about it in the first place. Maybe I'm not cut out for the opera. 5 out of 10. Alright, our next piece is called La Ragazza Siciliana, pardon, with a critic score of 8.5 apparently, but our dear characters have some things to say about this one. Starting with Lavinia.
Not much to say. I heard that the directing team recently won an award. I hope the show actually earned it, and isn't just another mediocre product propped up to fluff Signora Sicilia. It's not fair to hardworking playwrights.
3 out of 10. Dan Brown. Fake. Never expected this play to be so long. I fell asleep halfway through and got woken up by the people next to me. Almost got kicked out of the theater again. Seeing them trying to fluff up the Familia like that at the end, not to mention Signora Sicilia, was pretty damn funny. 3 out of 10. Sora.
Rather disappointed. Rather disappointed. The title of the play caught my fancy and I originally planned to study up on the actors, but the story itself was rather disappointing. It should have been about the history and evolution of Siracusa over the years, as well as the conflicts among the Familia, both above board and behind the scenes, but they kept forcing in those strange little praises instead of treating the subject matter seriously. Also, the actors look pretty lost.
3 out of 10. Also, speaking of, this... the title of this one apparently translates to the Sicilian girl, which does kind of sound familiar, but I really cannot place it. Anyway, followed by Lapland. Yep, that's the title, followed by...
You sure worked your ass off, director!
1 out of 10. Continuing with Giovanna.
Left halfway through. Like so many other commentators, I was drawn in by the title. I thought it would be a historical documentary based on primary sources. I was pretty disappointed. If you're looking to study this to improve your writing, I'd stay home instead.
3 out of 10. Continue with Agonir. Something special. After thinking on it, I finally decided to buy another ticket. When would be a good time to invite her to come and see it? What a fascinating performance. 5 out of 10. And yes, the meme lord with the sleeping mask himself is just trying to piss off Signora Sicilia by inviting her to a play that just is fluffing up her own reputation. What a meme lord. I love him. Anyway, Texas.
Didn't like it. About halfway through I decided it'd be more worthwhile to throw a party. Croissant was right. I should have sold apple pie at the door.
Edited 3 days later.
Huh? Turns out I went to the wrong number.
Very interesting ending there. A laughing Texas. What did you smoke, Texas? Anyway, continue with Leon. No risk, no reward. Shows like this are a quick way to score fame and fortune, and the fact that it's won awards is unsurprising. However, I've been thinking recently, if people get too used to this logic, they'll just keep talking up whoever's actually allowed to speak, even if Grey Hall and the Familia cease to exist. 4 out of 10. Followed by Ben. Absolute garbage. Playwright? Puh. Whoever created this doesn't deserve the title. All he knows how to do is grab some pretentious words, some inflammatory ones, and some trendy topics to bait people into paying for it. Slap this hodgepodge together and call it a finished work. 1 out of 10. And some very choice words and very emotional words from our dear Ben. Anyway, followed by, and ending by, Dimitri. Never should have been put on stage. Some of my subordinates recommended me this opera. They generally believed in the history it recounts, as well as the lofty heights to which it lifts the Familia. Siracusa's Familia were never meant to be her saviors. Harboring such illusions in the first place would only serve to destroy the Familia. 1 out of 10. And our final piece, Sette Assassinia, or 7 Assassinations, if I got the correct translation for this one. Anyway, again, a very high critic score here with a 9.7, but our dear buddies here are, yeah. Beginning with Lapland.
Dumbfounded. Still boring as hell.
1 out of 10. Lavinia.
Left halfway through. You rarely see shows this bad. A complete waste of the time and the time I have after work. I probably should have realized that what I was getting into when I saw the long list of companies in the credits.
3 out of 10. Dan Brown. Addictive. A lot of people started walking out, so I went up to the front. There were lots of exciting fight scenes, so that was good. 7 out of 10. Leon. Give me my time back. I'd rather try nibbling on thistles. 2 out of 10. Giovanna.
Disappointing. Quite inferior, even if we're purely speaking from the perspective of a playwright's creative process. There were actually 7 main characters, all of which died in the end. Combined with the tragic music, I was left utterly speechless.
2 out of 10. Agonir. Slept through it. This eye mask is good at blocking out the light, and the performance did a great job of putting me to sleep. 2 out of 10. Ben.
Pretty neat. There are hardly any shows these days that can make me laugh out loud, and they only get fewer and farther between. So just for that alone, 9 points.
And like he says, 9 out of 10. Apparently it's so bad, it's funny. Anyway, Dimitri. Exactly what I expected. I decided to watch it because of the reviews, so I understand where the polarized ratings come from. I remember watching a movie from Lungmen before that had some nice fights between the gangsters and the cops. What the hell was this? 3 out of 10. Texas.
Terrible. If a Lungmen movie ever turned out this bad, a certain someone would make a 50-long diss track.
Indeed he would. 3 out of 10. Sora.
Had to bail. Had to walk out halfway through. On the way back I finally figured out what was so weird. Siracusa doesn't even have police. The Lungmen-style gangsters flick appeared to be a judge, and the wise guys doing drive-by crossbow shootings, which was beyond hilarious. Too bad the boss isn't here, because I'd love for him to get a load of this.
3 out of 10. Anyway, this concludes our critic section. Once again, I would have loved it if, just for the shits and giggles, we would have had Signore De Lupi in here. But yeah, it is what it is, I guess. Anyway, we shall now go into a tour of Volcini. So, we will follow along with the route of the main story and cover the surrounding extra stages, which are part of stuff like the EX stages and the later S stages, but let's go in order. Just like the story, beginning at the Pizzeria Martino. And it says, the waiters show up only to bring out the menu and serve the food. They know that some conversations are best not overheard. followed by the Cittadella Main Street. The buildings along Cittadella Main Street boast magnificent architecture, but their sharp edges and corners are a bit too sharp for some familia's tastes. On the very left here, we have the cafe. Not everyone is a fan of this cafe's new varieties of coffee. Breaking old rules is a new anomaly. Followed by the car wash, or autolavaggio, a small car wash shop with a clerk of very few words. Business doesn't look too bad, too hot, only a few old acquaintances stop by. Continuing along the main story, we have the Shady Park, a good place to enjoy the breeze. However, the residents don't get too close to the tree-shaded area, not since the body of a sanitation worker was found there. Following the story, we have the Volcini Grand Hotel. Atop these tables, familia complete transactions and contests. Such is civilized socialization. Continuing towards the prison, before it we have Fiori di Ruggiada. Nobody cares to delve too deeply into why there's a florist next to the prison. The boss simply counts the money. Then we have the Volcini prison, the coming of age ceremony for a mafioso, once in the courthouse, once in the slammer. Speaking of the courthouse, the Volcini courthouse. Some civilians once watched a judge get pulled into a car and could only fearfully avert their eyes, not daring to peer behind the scenes. Followed on the very left by the hospital, a hospital erected near the courthouse. In addition to the skills typically demanded of their profession, the doctors and nurses also know how to treat lesser seen explosive and bolt wounds. Right below that, we have the Pub Tramonto. Once a naive wise guy came here bragging about a deal he was about to score. The next day, people found a stiff corpse lying across the front of the doorway. Before we continue along the main story, we go to the top right. We have the Rosati estate. The Rosatis, inheritors of Salvadore's legacy. Below that, a Baroque street. The old streets of Volcini are either packed with fighting familia or completely empty. Below that, a back alley. Never go into a back alley alone. Every Siracusan child gets this half advice, half plea from their parents. Below that, a neighborhood. Poorer residents live here. A lot of things happen here, but the judges don't pay any extra attention to it. Then on the very left we have the Saluzzo estate. Saluzzos never place their bets lightly. Followed by Beppes Craft. The owner of the shop claims to be a nobody, but if an establishment never gets any solicitations from a familia, everyone already knows what's going on. On the bottom right we have a small alley. Parents always tell their children not to kick tipped over trash cans. You never know what bad things might roll out. On the left, the Bellona estate. The Bellones, now mightiest in all the city. Left of that, we have a residential neighborhood. The girl who lived here proudly proclaimed to her parents that she was seeing a young man from a familia. The smiles on their faces turned into an unfathomable expression. Then, following along again with the main story, right before the theater we have a small trail park. A place citizens often go to pass the time. The shrubbery leading to a shortcut out of the park has already been trampled flat. Above that, on the main story path, we have Teatro di Milano. Even if they have the money, ordinary citizens are reluctant to book a box seat. Left of that, we have the outside Teatro Milano. Workers are quickly taking down posters of an up-and-coming lead actor. In private, people whisper about his presence at a familia banquet the night before. Following along the main path, we have the Penguin Logistics office. Exia saw a marking on the door, and without thinking twice, covered it up with a graffiti commonly seen in the streets of Lungmen. Consequentially, a few days later, an abandoned garage not too far away got blown up. Left of that, Broadcast Tower. Radio broadcasts are the best way for Volcini residents to keep abreast of the latest developments. The TV stations only want you to know what you're allowed to know. Below that we have a repair shop. If the wise guys show up, the repairman can do much more than just fix up electronics. He has the telltale calluses on his hands from the abrasion of a bowstring. Continuing along the main path, we have the church. Devout worshippers by day, ruthless cutthroats who fight over their slice of the pie by night. On the surface, they appear plenty civilized. Then we have the secondary core area control tower. Control the tower, and you control the city. And our final stop is the Volcini Municipal Center. The government is just the cloth draped over Grey Hall's round table. Alright, after that we have our EX stages, which we will be adding as well. Also, funnily enough, the vast majority of the EX stages is taking place on the left side of the map, while only one of them is situated on the very right side. Which is very funny, as you'll see when we get to the S stages. But first off, stage number 1. Muffling drizzles. The rain washes away all, drowns all, and says nothing. Stage 2. Rainy days. The rain forms a fine net that catches all souls on this earth. Stage 3. Storm brewing. A heavy drop of rain falls on the window, the sign of the coming storm. Stage 4. Dark skies. Some take shelter under a roof, some hold up their umbrellas, and some carry on despite being battered. Stage 5. The only stage that is taking place on the right side of the map. Precautionary measures. You know the rain is coming. You know what to prepare for. Stage 6. From rain to frost. Kind of reminds me also From Dusk Till Dawn. But anyway, which is kind of funny because of the logo of the pub. I wonder if that is actually a reference to that. Anyway, suffering is not to be praised, but it creates the strongest ties. Stage 7, Dripping Rain. Wear your sleeping mask and listen to the rain knock on the glass windows as you futilely try to sleep. I don't know about you, stage, but hearing the rain kind of just lulls me to sleep. Anyway, stage 8, the final of the EX stages, Broken Rain. Break the arrogant hair, the rain has gone on long enough. Now, before we continue into the EX stages, we're gonna make a small little detour. But before that, let me just quickly say, because I think I forgot to say it at the beginning of this video, I was talking about during the narrations that I will probably cover the solo sections here, but considering that even if you complete everything in-game, it does not allow you to pick different options for certain conversations. I'm not gonna utilize wiki pages and stuff like that, because the differences are very minimal from what I've seen online. And considering that in-game it doesn't allow me to document this in video format, I'm just gonna skip it, and I'm just gonna leave the narrations of all of these in the actual narration up until this episode, because they make, at the end of the day, way more sense to be left in there as they are, considering that they are just different perspectives and what the characters were essentially up to leading up to certain story points or after certain story points. So they fill in essentially the blanks, and outside of that, yeah, they kind of are like eh when you just read them by themselves. There is some interesting stuff, like I think I read that for example, one of his lines was about his suitcase being empty, but we do get that info anyway, so you know. Anyway, before we now go into the S stages and their descriptions, we will make a detour. So, I wonder how many people actually realize that the medals that you get with these events, medals in general, but the medals that you get with these side stories actually carry some little extra tidbits of information and story. And you'll see very soon what I mean by that. 2 of these medals are very interesting, to put it lightly. But we shall begin at the very bottom and work our way out. Up, pardon. Anyway, bottom medal, territorial settlement medal. You cast your gaze over the streets of Volcini. Not even the tiniest speck of blood by these sewer entrances escapes your attention. Followed by the Familia Elite medal. Your name has become known amongst the Familia. Be careful at night. Followed by the first interesting medal in here, Curtain Call. You watch the final act of I Siracusani. Familiar actors leave the stage one by one, and the heavy curtain drops down. A new city awaits the dawn of day. And where do you get this one? Complete all stages in Terra Desolata Autoproclamata on Challenge mode. What is that, you might ask? Well, it's the S stages. And I want to point out that I Siracusani is the stage play that Giovanna writes after the events of the main story conclude. And that is apparently a very good stage play. I will, after we are done with reading through these very quickly, I will say of what this situation reminds me of very quickly. And it is a reference to Final Fantasy XIV. And you'll know, for those of you who do play the game, you might actually already have an idea what I mean by this. But anyway, Stage 1, or I guess Act 1 of I Siracusani, Murder. Defend the Familia's honor at all costs. Stage 2, Act 2, Manipulate. The Familia's will shall be done. Stage 3, Act 3, Vengeance. The Familia's wrongs shall be avenged. Stage 4, Act 4, Bounty. The Familia's order permits no challenge. Stage 5, Final Act, Repentance. Swallow the bread and let rain wash away your sins. Pray that the sun's rays await at the end of the rainy season. And like I said before, funnily enough, all 5 of these are taking place at the right side of the map, with the exclusion of that one single EX stage that was in between these two. But yeah, the situation this reminds me of is a thing from Final Fantasy XIV. Now, for people who don't play that game, essentially, in the game you have, well, this is mostly referring to the so-called trials and the raids going on from the Heavensward expansion into the future. Essentially, when you complete a trial, for example, a trial being a single a boss battle, essentially, against a iconic or unique boss from Final Fantasy in general. After you complete the story version of it, you get the opportunity to go and talk to this guy called the Wandering Minstrel, which is pretty much a fourth wall breaking Yoshi P, aka director of the game, who is in game as the Wandering Minstrel, aka a bard, who listens to your story about the battle and then creates his own version of it. Essentially, he creates a bigger, tougher battle out of the story you told him. And did Giovanna literally pull a Wandering Minstrel here and retold a story in 5 acts? Because this last one obviously ends on a fight against Signora De Lupi again. And also, I would like to add here that screw this stage on challenge mode. Oh my god. I usually don't care what I bring towards these kind of stages that only need to be completed once. I just bring the heaviest hitters and see how stuff goes and adjust accordingly. But oh my god, while it took me 2 attempts on normal mode for this stage and it just worked, for some reason, challenge mode, which, by the way, is only Signore De Lupi gains greatly increased attack in the second form. The greatly increased attack was not the problem here. I want to point out. For some reason, challenge mode was just not working. And when I got seriously pissed after an hour, and I'm sorry if I'm ranting here, but I need to get this out of myself. After an hour of attempts and it just not working, I went and looked up a guide from Kiostif with high-level units just to see what he used for his guide. And I swear I had an aneurysm when I saw the guide, because he was using literally, outside of 2 units, he was literally using the same setup and the same goddamn deployment order of units as I was doing. I swear I had an aneurysm when I saw that. I almost just laid flat on the floor when I saw that I was doing the same thing and it was just not working. But yeah, the major difference was a Skadi Altar in a specific position and a Ifrit. Even though Ifrit didn't matter at all, to be fair, in that whole setup, it was literally just a specific position in the middle of that guide, in the middle lane, where the, what are they called again? Because I keep forgetting their names. Yeah, the cleaners were coming from, and for some reason, they were, well, he was getting debuffed, but for some reason, I just couldn't get the debuff to land on someone else, or not land at all, on Mountain, specifically in that lane. I swear I had an aneurysm when I saw that I was doing literally the same thing. I don't know what happened, but after like 30 minutes of additional attempts, it worked. I never want to see this stage again in my life. Never. Anyway, let's go back on track. Sorry for the rant. I just had to get this out of myself. Anyway, continuing with the medals. After Curtain Call comes Primal Barrets. You seize the throat of the Lord of the Wilds. The rules of the game may not be broken. Followed by Echoes of Rain. You have reached the end of this rain. A gap opens in the overcast sky. The wind blowing in from the Barrens stops in its steps. Passerby look up, waiting for the next rain by habit. Followed by Surgical Treatment. You witness change in Siracusa. All thorns buried deep within flesh have been shifted. What lies at the end of the path of briars is yet unknown. Yet some continue to thread that path. Followed by Bon Appetit. You have tried everything on the menu. The steak's bloody cross-section leaves a deep impression, but the taste is okay overall. Familia Procurement Specialist Medal. Supplies that you purchase have filled the Familia's warehouse. Fresh ingredients pile up, and the goods furthest in have unusually long expiration dates. Followed by the Cub Howling at the Moon. You know the air of Bellone. Ah, the Familia formerly known as Bellone. The wolf cub picks up his father's banner in his mouth and runs towards the moon in his heart, casting away stale and rotten order. Very poetic. Followed by Renaissance. You forget yourself among the operas. The facade of happiness is fleeting. The truth of pain is eternal. And our final medal, the one that pulls a bit on the heartstrings. Mourn the New Birth. You completed your journey at Siracusa. Remember to visit the graves and offer fresh flowers before you leave. Rest in peace, Rubio. I still wish your daughter would have not had to listen to that radio broadcast, but oh well. Also, speaking of, I swear, I feel like I've seen some comments around us on Reddit and some other people's YouTube videos, and I swear, I feel like I'm the only one who, even in the narration itself, was commenting on the fact that, oh my god, that poor child. Everybody else was like, this is the MVP, this is the man. Well, I agree to that. He is the MVP of the story. The only thing, the literal first thought that went through my head was, oh my god, his poor daughter. Oh my god, his poor daughter had to listen to this man put a bullet in his head. Holy shit. But anyway. Sorry for bringing that one up again. But anyway, thank you very much for listening to this entire narration. And I would also like to point out that with this very episode, this is very much the longest, time-wise, the longest side story that I have narrated on this channel. It is actually, if I am correct and I didn't mess up the math, it is actually beating the Stultifera Navis narration, which had a ton of extra stuff. But I wanted to be thorough with this one because I'm very happy. I'm very happy that I was in the past very thorough with the Stultifera story, because holy shit, is that story gutted. That story is so gutted right now in the intermezzi section of the menu. Let me just quickly show you what I mean by that. What I mean by that is when you go into the menu, obviously you can explore through everything, right? You can go in order, you get all the nodes, you get all... probably, I don't know. But I think you get all the little stories you click for the first time. But here is the thing. Once you complete it now in the intermezzi section, you have no access anymore to any of the, like, journal stuff or the picture stuff, the music, nothing. You have no access to it. If you zoom through everything, like 60, well, let's go with like 80% of the side stuff, which is, by the way, a lot of it is background story to the past of Iberia and certain key figures of the story that I'm not gonna go into here right now because I don't want to spoil obviously for anybody, but it is mind-boggling how you have no access to any of that anymore once you pass it once. So I am very happy that I was so thorough when I was recording that in the past. Super happy. Pretty much, while I don't like to pump up my own stuff too much, but it's literally the only way right now outside of going to a wiki page to actually experience the event in order. Outside of it later in the year having its rerun, obviously, which is probably gonna be as short as the Neuralite one. That's gonna be horrendous to go through for anybody new. But anyway, I'm very happy that I recorded all of that stuff in order. So if you haven't experienced that story yet, I would highly recommend it. Very good story, a lot of background info. Kind of on the same branch as this one when it comes to craziness, but Cthulhu craziness instead of Mafia craziness. But yeah, anyway, going back to this, once again, thank you very much for listening to this entire narration, leaving comments and likes on the videos. All of that interaction helps a lot with the algorithm, and it obviously means a lot to me. And for anybody who is new to the channel and is still listening to this, if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. Would be nice to get to that monetization level of 1,000 eventually. But to anybody who has subscribed so far, thank you very much. It really means a lot to me. But yeah, this will be it. This is done with this story. What comes next on the channel? Well, I have a bunch of backlog modules to go through, considering I also have a bunch of module components that I that I can use to unlock them. So there's gonna be a bunch of smaller episodes throughout the week, but I'll already have a side story in mind, because the next story, as has already been announced, will be the rerun for Break the Ice, which I already did a narration last year, which allows me to do a older story. A story with a lot of sand. You'll see what I mean soon. But anyway, if you are new to Arknights and haven't seen the Break the Ice side story yet, it is, once again, a very good side story. Pretty, kind of long as well, but doesn't have a lot of fluff around it like Il Siracusano or Stultifera or Norlight, but still, very good side story, introducing the Silver Ashes and their home territory. And considering it's gonna be live pretty much a day or two after, I think, after this video goes live, I can only highly recommend it. You can find it very easily on the channel, and I'll probably repost it in the community section once the story goes live. But anyway, thank you again. This has been a lot of fun to narrate, especially the Signore de Rupi lines. Yeah, I'll see you in the next narration on the channel, be it story or some shorter forms of material. But until then, hope you have a fantastic day wherever you are, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, bye bye.